In the late 1800s, German Catholic leaders were dismayed that their country's wealth and its wealth-producing resources were disproportionately in the hands of German Protestants. So they hired Max Weber to help them understand why. Now, at the time, Weber was a political economist and considered the father of modern sociology, a reputation that he earned in large part because of the essay that he wrote as a result of his study, an essay that was titled "The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism." It is considered a landmark work, an explanation of how it was that a small band of men were able to set aside such tremendous weight of tradition and religious dogma of the Catholic Church as they went about re-envisioning, recreating, rebuilding, and reforming religious belief. Martin Luther and John Calvin were at the center of Weber's study as he considered the impact that their challenge to the Catholic Church's beliefs in so many fundamentally important ways had impact on German culture. At the time, the Catholic Church held that there was a hierarchy of labor and that monastic life was at the top of that pyramid. Both Luther and Calvin held that there was no evidence to support this belief in the Bible, that indeed their interpretation of the Bible's message was that the human race was created to work for the completion of God's creation, and that we were all called to be God's co-creators, and that that was true of all the tasks that men undertake, that they could all be taken on with a sense of calling, that there wasn't any hierarchy at all. Luther and Calvin were also much more comfortable with the idea of profiting from your labor. While the Catholic Church saw profit as a temptation to sin, these reformers, let me also call them these deviants, and it's not surprising that one would be a German and that one would be a Frenchman, which is to say neither came from Rome. Luther and especially Calvin were quite clear that profit was a sign of God's blessing upon your enterprise, but that you must put that profit to good creative use. You must reinvest it and grow more good creative enterprise as your calling to help bring to pass God's kingdom on earth. And oh, by the way, one of the tenets held in common by the Christian and Islam and Jewish faiths is the belief that God created man to be his co-creator. Now, these deviant reformers were also clear that there was no need for an intermediary between the common man and the Bible, at the time when the Catholic Church kept it hidden from the people, considering it a sacred text that the people could not have access to, and that the Catholic authorities held that the people couldn't understand it without priestly interpretation. But Luther and Calvin urged their parishioners to take up the Bible for themselves, and that urging resulted in the growth of literacy, and it certainly invited independent thought. In the countries where the Reformation had its greatest effect, where the Catholic Church's influence declined and one or more of the various Reformation faiths took hold, where generation after generation of men brought the fervor of their faith to their commerce and their trade, where they learned that the best investment techniques, where they studied matters of deep significance and thought about what they read, the ethic and the culture and the personality of creative entrepreneurism came to be, and Weber's conclusion was that was why the wealth was held in the hands of the German Protestants.